This presentation of Law Day was sponsored by the Florida Association for Women Lawyers of Martin County and the Martin County Bar Association.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Metzger. I'm the Chief Judge for the 19th Judicial Circuit. Initially, I want to thank the Martin County chapter of Florida Association for Women Lawyers as well as the Martin County Bar Association for presenting this very important panel discussion about the drug court in our circuit. We're fortunate to have Judge Levin as one of our circuit judges. Since his appointment to the bench, Judge Levin has created and presided over many specialty courts, which are specifically designed to save lives, save money, and protect the community by providing an alternative therapeutic option for offenders. He has encouraged private sector mental health and recovery professionals to create programs to be a part of our adult drug court, juvenile drug court, dependency drug court, as well as our mental health court. The mission of the 19th Judicial Circuit Court is to provide a cooperative team of diverse professionals and community leaders who work to coordinate services to support individuals in becoming drug-free and productive members of our communities. The panel today are the team who actually participate in our drug court. The 19th Judicial Circuit is very fortunate to have these individuals who have made the drug court a very successful program for our community.
Good afternoon. I'm attorney Kathy McHale, and I'm president of the Martin chapter of the Florida Association for Women Lawyers. The presentation today is a panel discussion on the success of the drug court in the 19th Judicial Circuit. The purpose of the discussion is to educate the community on the specialty courts, namely the drug courts, which provide alternatives to offenders. The founder of the drug court in our circuit is Judge Stephen Levin. He has been a circuit court judge since 1999 and served as the chief judge from 2009 to 2015. Almost immediately upon becoming a circuit judge, Judge Levin started to create new specialty courts throughout the 19th Judicial Circuit, which are Martin, St. Lucie, Indian River, and Okeechobee counties. Judge Levin has educated himself to understand the substance abuse and mental illness, its symptoms, treatment options, and treatment side effects. Judge Levin makes sure that all defendants have access to the services that they need to improve their lives. His professionalism with the defendants is immeasurable. Also with us is Catherine Alonzo. She is the diversion court supervisor for the Office of the Public Defender for the 19th Judicial Circuit. She has worked alongside Judge Levin for the past 18 years as they instituted the drug courts and mental health courts in the 19th Circuit. Attorney Gail Braun is the juvenile court misdemeanor supervisor for the State Attorney's Office of the 19th Circuit. She has worked in the drug courts for the past 18 years as well. Bob Zacchio is the executive director and founder of Project Lift. He is a licensed psychotherapist and certified substance abuse expert. He recognized the critical need to address mental health issues with youth and are dealing with substance abuse, depression, anxiety, and family conflict. There are no other regional or statewide programs similar to Project Lift that work in an outpatient setting. The combination of learning a skilled trade while at the same time learning how to deal with and overcome mental health and substance abuse issues is unique to this organization. So why don't we start with, where did the concept of the drug court begin? Judge Levin?
The drug court idea actually in this circuit came from Frank Brogan, who turned out to be later on in his life Lieutenant Governor of Florida, and Assistant State Attorney Pam Roebuck. They started the juvenile drug court in the 1990s, I believe, because the original drug court in the country started in 1989 with then State Attorney Janet Reno in Miami, starting it in Miami. I was appointed in 2000 and really didn't have an interest in going through a social setting of trying to help people that much, because as a prosecutor, I saw my role as being differently in coming into to be a judge. I accepted the position, and since that time I have found that the drug court has been the most successful, innovative, and contributing to community program that has ever been in this country. I would say certainly in the state, in this area, where we have a success rate where approximately 7 out of 10 never come back in the system again. We give individuals who are first-time offenders primarily counseling. We give them frequent court appearances. We give them sanctions when they do things that are not right, including jail time. And we give them praise and when they are doing well, and give them incentives to do well. So we give them drug testing on a random basis, 365 days a year. It could be as many as 2-3 times a week. And it's done with a team effort. And the team effort is those that are sitting here, plus a lot of others who have helped tremendously with our program, make it one of the most successful programs in the 19th Circuit and also throughout the state of Florida.
Okay. What is the purpose of the drug court from each of your perspectives? So, Katie.
Well, I'm a criminal defense attorney, so I advocate for the clients, the participants in drug court. And prior to drug court, there wasn't a whole lot that the system could do for addicts. If you get arrested for something criminal, you have to face whatever the consequences are, whether it's probation or jail or prison. But no one was getting any better. So as soon as you get out of prison or you get out of jail, it's the same cycle. So what drug court tries to do, and I think we do a very good job, is we stop that cycle. And we, as well as punishing, we also treat. And so the idea is maybe they won't reoffend.
Okay. Gail?
Yes, and from my perspective, drug court takes the place of a diversion program, which used to be authorized by the Florida statutes. In that case, the diversion program would allow somebody who is a first offender to get their charges dropped if they completed a program. So the law started enabling drug court through Florida statutes, and we allow a person who's willing to participate to enter the program if they have no prior record. And they get their charges dropped. So if they complete successfully, they get to say they're not a convicted felon or any other charge that they have.
Okay. And Bob, from your perspective, what is it?
From the clinical perspective, is we get opportunities to really tease out whether or not we have a real drug problem on our hands with those people that come through. The folks that come through actually have opportunities to get clean. Sometimes for the first time, it's the first time they've been clean in years. So what we end up doing is taking an opportunity for the person to clear up their brain, clear their mind, get it clean and sober, and then have the opportunity to make better decisions, right? So if we're able to get the person to make better decisions, that means cross-environmentally, whether at their work, at their school, at their at home, with their families and their family function. Once we get them clean, then we can also take a look at what some of the real issues are. Because was the drug use at that point then just a symptom, or are we really talking about a physiological addiction that the person has? So symptoms meaning, like, if we tease it out, we can take a look and see, are they suffering from anxiety? Are they suffering from depression, stress management, attention deficit, or a family functional issue? And a lot of times these folks will see it as a family functional issue. A lot of times it's like 80% of the time it's a family functional issue.
So what is drug court specifically? What tools are used to complete the program?
The drug court program is really an intensive supervision program. It's where each person here, I mean, we have the state attorney's office full cooperation, the public defender's office full cooperation, law enforcement full cooperation. We have probation officers, we have the lab, we have counselors, and we look at the whole person, as Bob Zacchio said, and we try to give intensive supervision. People charged with first-time felonies, and now we have misdemeanor drug court, we have juvenile drug court we've had, and we had dependency drug court for abused, neglected children's parents who needed drug help at one point in time. And they come see a judge once or twice every other week or every week, depending on what level they're at. They go to self-help meetings, which some people know as AA and A meetings. There are others also. And they also get drug tested on a random hotline. And they do this every single day. They pay for their treatment and they pay for their drug testing. So it's a self-pay program, which we believe financial responsibility is part of the recovery process. So from the perspective of the bench, we follow these individuals closely and really monitor every aspect of their life.
Okay. What is the length of the drug court process itself, on average?
We have different programs, but the statute requires for felony drug court to be at least a year. We find that almost no one finishes right at a year. It's usually more like 18 months to 2 years. We've gone much longer than that. And legally we can't go any shorter than a year. So the felony drug court's at least a year. Misdemeanor drug court, which we do not have in Martin County yet, but we do have in St. Lucie, that is at least 6 months is typically what we do.
Okay. And are there different phases of drug court?
There are phases. It's based on evaluation. First of all, to see how you're going to go into the program. So some people have a lesser program, and some people have a more involved program. And as you succeed on your levels, you get to be promoted to a higher level in the program, which would give you the opportunity to appear less in court and maybe be called up less for drug testing. And they start giving you a little rope to see if you'll hang yourself or to see if you'll succeed.
Okay.
And a lot of that's based on therapy, on what Bob Zacco and the other therapists do. They put them through what's required in each phase and lessen some of the things, as said, and sometimes intensify depending on the individual need of the person.
Yeah, we take opportunities to really, like we talked about earlier, just have the holistic approach that, with these offenders. So to speak, we get opportunities to take a look inside their life, which is stuff that sometimes the court doesn't necessarily have to see or needs to see. Is we get that opportunity to be in their life on a regular basis, sometimes for 10 hours a week. We're working with these patients. We'll see that they get opportunities to maybe be promoted in their job, and that's when we start to look at their job, their work life start to get better, and their home life start to improve, and their kids or the relationships are getting better. Those are all signals that your brain is clearing up. And once that brain starts to clear up, then we can start making approvals with the rest of the team to say, all right, I think this person's ready for phase 2 or ready for phase 3. And then sometimes it works conversely, is that we get a person in phase 3 that shouldn't be messing up, and they mess up. And when you have a phase 3 mess up, it's a little bit different than a phase 1 mess up, right? So, and that's the different things that we try to take into account. And again, this whole team has the opportunity to just take each individual and work with them in an individual way. We don't lump them all together and say everybody's an addict. We take everybody on one approach in individuality and say, what's going on in this person's life that we can help them improve in.
And I want to talk a moment, if I can, about the jobs that you mentioned about the job situation.
Jobs are important. Yeah.
The jobs are important. We want the individuals, and I require, if they're capable and not disabled or have a disability or cannot work, that they work in the community, and they work and they pay their own way. That's so crucial. And what I get sometimes, and since this will be a broadcast that will be seen by those in the community, they should realize that the drug court individuals are probably the best workers they're going to have hired at most places. There's very few employees out there in this community or any of the 4 counties, or for that matter the state, that are being drug tested on 2 to 3 times a week, go see a judge once every week, go to counseling twice a week. And there's very few programs I know of where if an employee shows up late for work, you can indirectly get word to the judge, and the judge can hold the person accountable. So when there's a drug court person out there looking for a job, they really need to be considered because they will be the most responsible and clean individuals that can possibly be imagined, because they're being watched so closely. I think that you've all noticed that, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I totally agree with that. Even on so many different levels, I know we're talking mainly about adults, but when we look at juveniles as well, when we take a look at the sporting events that they're in, or the teams that they're on in the high schools, I'll say to coaches all day long, like, listen, you want this kid on your team. You don't want to take an asset away. He's the cleanest kid you got out there right now, and he's going to be your most productive kid. And it's the same thing with our employers. Is we want them to know that we're here for them, and we're also here for the patient, and we're there to help them get to that next step of their life. And that does come in, and exactly what Judge said is, this should be and will be your cleanest employee that you have.
We go to Bedford.
Yep.
Each one of us has called up an employer and said,
That's right.
so-and-so is in our drug court, and they say, oh, a drug person. Say, no, listen, and we explain the program to them. We've all had that experience, and it really, I think the more education that the community has about the drug court program, they'll realize the benefits it is to them and to the safety of the community, and also to the businesses.
So who are the participants in the drug court?
Well, you'll have the judge, the public defender, the state attorney, the counseling team, and then you'll have probation, you'll have
Self-help.
police.
Yes, law enforcement. In Martin County, we also have the Martin County Health and Human Services Division, and they come in and provide some case management services.
They do a great job. They do a great job putting
Fantastic
together in
job.
Martin County. I mean, Anita Kokowas and Sharon Krim is our case manager, and they do magnificent job on evaluating these initially and telling them where they should go and how they go into that. So,
And the court too, right? The court participates. They have a representative that they assign.
Court administration.
Court
yes.
administration also has a case manager that's put out through the 19th Circuit Court Administration through the chief judge, and we have them in the team. The team is about 12, and some of the juvenile programs I know in St. Lucie County and in Martin County when I did here, we have the school. We have the school principals, we have superintendents sometimes there. In the past, we've had to make the individual accountable in every aspect of life, which is interesting. You think about it. I've had juveniles walk in, see their principal there, and it's really a weird feeling in court. Like, you missed class on Tuesday, and they say, "How do you know that?" Yeah. And we have to emphasize again the sheriff's office and the police departments, but that we search these individuals, subject to search, and that means that we have a law enforcement officer with a canine dog, drug dog, who goes out to their houses on a random basis. They don't break a door down, but they go knock on the door and they search, and they keep the people, make sure their environments are also clean, because that's something that really can bring a person down quickly if they're not using drugs, but the environment they're living in is conducive or encourages that. It's a bad situation.
Okay.
Can I just speak on the team real quick,
Sure.
if you don't mind? So the team, we're talking about 12 people, 12 different agencies, a lot of times all working for the same good, for the same outcome. And what I've noticed about this team, and I haven't been involved now for a pretty long time, I think about 7 years it seems like, or 5 years, something in that range, is that we all care. We genuinely care about that patient. And that's what, I think that's what kind of separates this program from a lot of other programs, is that we're not there for any other reason except that we are genuinely invested in creating a productive citizen for our community and for themselves. And we all have that vested interest. There's so many people on these teams, they've been in Martin County for 30 years, 40 years that are on these teams that really genuinely are invested in the person and in our community. And I think that's what we see. And that does come from the head down. We have a judge that genuinely cares about every single person that walks in that door. You don't see that everywhere you go. I mean, we have fantastic judges in our circuit, that's for sure. But with Judge Levin really presiding over this court, it makes all the difference in the world.
We keep also talking about teams, and I think it's important to note that what we do is prior to court, prior to the clients actually coming into the courtroom, we meet as a team for an hour, sometimes 2 hours, and we discuss every single client who's going to come in. And that's why it's really important to have all of those people around the table, because the child might be doing really well in treatment, but missing school. And if you don't know that, you can't, Judge Levin won't be able then to address it with them. And so we have case management and all of those people that we just said on the team providing information. And it's really helpful. It really gives us a full picture of the
Because when we started, we
client.
didn't have all that. We started very small. I know that Katie was on the original team with me back when we started, and we really didn't know who would be needed. And then juvenile, we developed that here in Martin County originally, where we brought in the representatives. We actually had the principals from all the high schools there, and it was really very effective. And then we spread that to the other counties, and Okeechobee has a magnificent program now, and so does Indian River County, and in St. Lucie. All three of them run a similar type program, and they really have been. It's very unusual, because most of the time in regular court, you have state attorneys who are advocating one way, and defense attorneys advocating another way. But in drug court, they could be advocating the opposite way to get to the end goal of getting the person to address their addiction, stay clean, and become a productive member of society, which selfishly helps all of our communities. So it works that way. But it's a very unique program. If anybody hasn't seen it, they need to see it's not like regular court. That's what it comes down to.
So who is a prospective defendant?
It would be somebody who has no record. They could have like a minor past record, but typically someone with no record, and they have to have a drug charge, but it can't be for this selling or dealing in any controlled substances.
And the state attorney makes the recommendation, is that correct?
Yes, based on the criteria.
So how is drug court different from probation?
Well, drug court provides an extra whole level of supervision. On probation, you're never going to, if you are successful on probation, you never come back in front of the court. You maybe meet with your probation officer maybe once a month. You might be ordered to therapy as part of probation, but nobody's really holding you accountable. Probation just waits to see if you complete it or you don't. In drug court, you are required to come back to court. In phase one of the early phases, it's every single week. you have to come back to court, you're held accountable, everyone knows everything about you when you walk in, and also your issues are dealt with immediately. So if you've missed therapy and the therapist in our staffing says, oh no, they didn't come to therapy, they didn't call me, I don't know why, then the judge deals with it that very same time. And so you can get sanctioned, you can get community service hours, you could get jail time, you could get having to write an essay or do a speech. I mean, there's all kinds of sanctions that happen all the time.
Or we can uncover something significant, like why wasn't the person there? It's not all about the punitive part. It does like, well, why weren't you able to show up? And then that dialogue is now open in open court, and we have a caring judge with the right people in play. They go, all right, well now we understand why you didn't show up. Well, what can we do to make that better for next time? And it may not be a sanction, but it may be let's double that up this week and really dig in on that family issue. And you'll hear Judge Levin say a lot of times from the bench, listen, I don't know what's going on in your life, and that's for the therapist to understand, but you know what, let's get that under control, and I'm here for you, and we're gonna make it better.
I think going back to your question, what's the difference between probation? Probation is a slower process because it has to be. If you use drugs in drug court or have a relapse, which is sometimes part of the recovery, you're punished or sanctioned or put in jail or detention within a couple days of using the drugs. And probation, because of the nature of the system, there is a warrant issued, you're arrested on the warrant, you wait for the next docket call. It could be months literally before you're even addressed at all, and it wouldn't be towards a therapeutic end necessarily. Probation is a wonderful tool and great, and it works wonderfully, and we really need it in our criminal justice system, but it's just not a close supervision because of the numbers, and that they're strapped thin for personnel and money, and the drug court is a quick, immediate solution or addressing the problem.
And I would say the main difference is with probation, they are doing things. They are sending them for evaluations and things like that. But if someone violates, that's the end of the road. They're going to probably sit in jail until their case is heard. They're not going to get the second chance or the third chance that they could get treatment or sanctioned and then back and another chance. With probation, if you violate, you're going to be in front of the judge, and the state's going to be asking to sentence you right away, as opposed to giving you another chance.
And people don't tend to ask when you violate probation, oh, well, why did you miss that appointment, like Bob was saying. And in drug court, we're going to address that and figure out why and what the reason is, and try to make things better, instead of just violating someone and putting them in jail.
Well, we created an honest environment. It's an honesty court. People are honest. I've had individuals come into my courtroom and say to me, Judge, put me in jail. And I say, what are you talking about? He said, I relapsed, I can't stop, I need help, please put me in jail. They have said that. They've come in there, and they literally come in a day they're not even scheduled. They said, I need to go to jail, I can't control this, especially with the new opioid crisis, what's going on. They really look towards, they know they have a problem, they can't stop, they're addicts, they know it's against the law, and they seek the help. And in the long run, like I said, it pays for the whole community, for those individuals to get that help.
So what happens if somebody fails a drug test in the drug court system?
That's when the team would be notified, and then it would be staffed by the entire team and determine what they would like to do. And a lot of times the state will request a jail sanction, or the first time they might get lesser than a jail sanction. And of course, if it's marijuana, there's levels, and you have to wait, and the judge is very patient with them, and the defense advocates for them to make sure they're weaning off the marijuana instead of just using it again, because that's kind of a difficult thing to determine. But technically, the real answer is they would probably get 1 to more days in jail, and then released back to either more intensive treatment or the same treatment, and then they would get increasing amounts of jail time as a sanction, not as a complete punishment.
And of course, their therapist is notified, and so the therapist can then deal with the root of the problem in therapy.
And sometimes,
and the drug lab also is crucial, and in Martin County specifically, as mentioned before, the drug lab does a great job on monitoring, because as mentioned before, the levels of marijuana are looked at, the way what drugs are in the system, and we try to stay a step ahead. And the lab here does a great job of staying a step ahead, because there's drugs we never heard of, and brand new drugs every year that we don't know about, and we attempt to the best we can to stay ahead of the curve and finding out what's in people's system and getting them help.
Okay. How do you help get the defendants employment? You touched on that a little bit before, but why don't we go into a little bit more detail?
Well, First of all, we encourage, because a lot of our clients have had jobs previously. They know how to get a job, so we encourage them to apply and stuff. If there becomes issues, like Judge Levin said, sometimes employers aren't so quick to hire someone who has a record, or who, at least an arrest record. So maybe I'll write them a letter, contact the employer. Sometimes Judge Levin contacts the employer. We've had treatment contact, just to smooth everything over and try to help them get employed. A lot of times, though, they need a little bit more. So probation sometimes has some classes on resume building and interviewing skills, and even down to the little things, like Judge Levin requires the clients, when they come up before him, to not say yeah or no. And just that little bit of respect that we're teaching them to. And some people obviously can do that, but some people have never learned that. So just that little bit of help, I think, goes a long way with employers as well.
Sometimes when we're jumping in therapeutically, it's in our treatment plan. It's in the plan that we put together. Is that part of their life getting better is employability and a job. That gives you dignity and hope and respect and a lot of different things that come along with it. So when we're able to kind of get those people, those folks steered in that direction, we're able to create that in quite an easy way. One of the neat sanctions that comes up, I know using the word neat and sanction in the same sentence is probably bad, but when we look at it, sometimes we have people that are just, you're like, was this person lazy? Like, what's going on here? And the judge will come down, and as a team we'll make a decision. We'll go, listen, you're going to do 20 community service hours per week, or you're going to work 10 hours a day at a community, or doing community service or volunteer time until you find a job. And I'll tell you what, they find jobs fast like that. So we get opportunities for them to be their own empowerment, to go out and find their own abilities or use their own abilities to find jobs, which also just speaks directly into that approach. I think this is the best thing I've ever heard about this court, is that we are not here to serve a problem. We're here to solve a problem, and that's what this court does. It doesn't serve it, it solves it. And that's what we give the tools to these particular patients to do.
And it's remarkable. I had a young man in a different county who came in and court personnel talking during staffing, and they said that he had absolutely zero chance. He's a 19-year-old, and he was just totally out of it, not drug-wise, just life-wise. And he came in and he got that first job, as mentioned. That first job was at a fast food restaurant, and his whole demeanor, attitude, drug use, appearance, everything changed. And he just graduated recently in a different county, and when he laughed about it, I said, we didn't think he had a chance. And he said, I know, and he's just a polite young man now. And it's amazing to see his transition. There's no argument out there, whether you think drug court's the best program or not a great program, as some still believe judges should not be doing drug court. They should be out there just dispensing justice and putting people in sanctioning and punishing. But you can't argue that having this young man now at the age of 19 be a productive working member of the community is not safer for the community. It doesn't make the community a better place than him just being out of life and wandering the streets. So any argument out there is gone when you realize that if you see a successful story like that, that improves the entire community.
How can local businesses help?
If you're willing to help and employ people, you can contact my office. You can contact Project Lift. We know, and give us that information, and we have lots of people all the time who are willing and able to work.
What we know is, drugs and alcohol don't discriminate. In almost every door you knock on, any business door you knock on with these folks that walk in, a lot of times we have the business owner of the company in which the person's working for comes and helps and walks up, goes in front of the judge with the patient. It's about relationships, and if we could get that information out to the employment sector, of that when you're looking at employing people or helping out with this court, establish first a relationship, because these folks are just not identified as drug addicts, because once you clean them up, they can identify as something else, and that's our job. Our job is to help them identify as something other than a drug dealer or a drug addict or the scapegoat in the family or black sheep of the family. We're going to identify you as something else, and that relationship can get built with that business. And we have a tremendous business community around here. Female business leaders, male business leaders, they're just fantastic with what they want to do for our community.
Let's talk a little bit about the rehabilitative programs. You're obviously from Project Lift, so why don't you give us just a brief overview of how you interact with the drug court?
Sure. It was all a team approach. This is, again, one of the most unique perspectives that you'll ever see in a therapeutic setting. It is definitely a therapeutic model, the way I view it, the way it's viewed around the country. Except that we have the best team to work with. When we're working in other programs or with other programs like probation or so on and so forth, you don't have this kind of support. I don't get to pick up the phone and call the public defender and say, hey, listen, this is what's going on with this person. How do we make this better? What can we do? How can we get this solved before we get there? What decisions can we make so that it's not a big tedious task? Or is this something that we need to handle therapeutically? Right? So in terms of the way this whole model works, is obviously it's set up just like a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. We use motivational interviewing. There's some different strategies that we use in the therapeutic world that lend well to substance abuse issues. What we uncover, though, is that a decent amount, not all of them, are not addicted. Right? And now we're able, and this is that part about proceeding on with your life, and then if you are addicted, giving you the tools to deal with that in a lifelong recovery setting. Right? Because we've identified how many people that come back and they're just like, this place saved my life. I was sticking needles in my arm. I would have never guessed I would have been doing that. I was the varsity cheerleading, captain, and here I was at 20 years old sticking needles in my arm. And you don't get that perspective unless you're sitting with them and actually working a therapeutic model. They come back and they say, you know what? It saved my life. Thank you. And they come back and give speeches. And they're also able to say, I didn't know there were tools out there to give me lifelong recovery. And that's how the combination works.
There's, if people want to help, also, there's a program that, as Judge Levin mentioned, this is all self-pay.
Yep.
So there's no funding that we have for drug court participants. So they have to pay for their own treatment, their own drug testing, probation fees, all of those things. And as you know, not everyone is able to do that. So we started meaning at the Public Defender's Office, we started a nonprofit organization. It's called Life Builders of the Treasure Coast. And one of our missions is to help the people who are in drug court. We can help pay for counseling, we can help pay for drug tests, we can help pay for miscellaneous things. So for instance, if you really have to get out of that apartment that you're in because all the addicts are living there with you, but you don't have first, last, and security, Life Builders can help with that as well. So if you are wanting to help and wanting to help us make a difference, helping Life Builders would be great. And we can designate that money specifically for drug court.
Okay.
One question, one thing I just have to add, not relating to that, but just something, is that I have a lot of questions from people in the community about how can I get my child help, how can I get my friend, my spouse, my significant other, whoever it may be, help. And at this time, because obviously the court system is involved, you have to be charged with a crime. And that probably is one of the biggest negatives in our society, is that to get help sometimes you have to be charged with a crime. Because I've had parents of children who are younger teenagers who are desperate for help. And they call up and I say, there's not really much we can do from my perspective. So that's just something to keep in mind as we go forward there, that it's a program designed for people in the criminal justice system. Sometimes we lose sight of that because we're always talking about the holistic approach of helping on there.
So once a defendant has completed the drug court program, is there some type of graduation process?
We do a graduation ceremony on there about every couple months, and we do 5 or 6 people. Sometimes we've had as many as 13 here in Martin County, and other counties graduate 15 at the same time. And they graduate, and at graduation they bring their families, and it is a massive occasion. And you got tears, you got laughter, you got people whose lives have really changed forever, and a lot have. And what they do is they get presented a certificate of graduation. They get presented the order allowing them to withdraw the plea and dismiss the charges, which is a big part of this, but it should never be the incentive of anyone going into drug court, because if your incentive is just to get your charges dropped, you're going to be burnt out within 6 months or a year of coming every week and testing every day, and it's not the right way to go. And we also give them, interestingly enough, a booking photo. The original booking photo. We have Toby Olson, who's with the Sheriff's Office, who's been our liaison with the Martin County Sheriff's Office in this county for as long as I can remember. And he gets their booking photo because I show them, when I present that to them, how they used to look, and they compare that to now, and it gets some reaction, because that's probably the worst night of their life they're looking at, and how they look now. This is the difference. You can see it on their faces and their appearance.
We have a lot of people who keep that with them all the time, the booking photo, and that reminds them of a time they don't want to go back to.
So my last question is, obviously the drug court has been extremely successful. So from each of your perspectives, why do you think that's so?
As far as from the judicial perspective, I think the results are in the numbers. We've seen so many changes in drugs and alcohol use amongst young, amongst old, all the way around, and to address these issues that touch. There's not anyone watching this, there's not anyone who is involved in our community or county or circuit or state or country who doesn't know someone who has somewhat of an issue with either drugs or alcohol at some point in time. Or mental health, I'll throw that in, because we have mental health court, and it's all dovetails with the dual diagnosis of people who have mental health issues and who have drug abuse issues. So it touches every life, and that's what it comes down to. So the drug court program is a success in the numbers of looking at the resulting people. We have people decades later still thanking us for keeping them clean, and we didn't do it. They did the work, and they did it with the help of the team. And really, my role is not as minimal compared to the work of all these team members and what they do. And we have drug court in every single county in the circuit, and we have more than half the judges now doing drug court or mental health court, and Chief Judge Metzger does a great job of keeping more and more people involved in it and doing that as we go ahead.
Okay. Katie from the Public Defender's Office.
Well, I think that it's a holistic approach, and I think that's what does it. You figure out what is wrong, what can we help you fix, and then do it. And Judge Levin minimizes his position, but the reality is, I think that figure, that judicial figure who's able to sanction someone when appropriate and praise someone when appropriate, combined with the therapy, I think that's what does it.
Okay. Gail from the State Attorney's
I
Office.
think it's helpful for these people because it teaches them how to be accountable and responsible for themselves. Instead of just fixing them temporarily and letting them go on their way, it gives them tools. And that's why I think it's a success.
And Bob?
I think right along the same lines is this is solving problems. This is a strategy that is unique across the country, because I think so many other strategies out there are just serving it. You know, we had the conversation before we went on to this interview is about, you know, programs that are out there that are serving the problem so that it continues. We're solving it, and we're given the tools to do that. And one of the ways that I think it's most successful is, one is so many of our patients, they come in, they don't know if they're addicts or not. They just don't know. You know, they're really searching, and they're hurting, or they're at the lowest point of their life. And then we discover that they may have a mom issue or a dad issue. And then all of a sudden we're realizing that we might be taking on a family role or a family function inside that courtroom, and then giving them a job with hope and promise and dignity gives them those extra pieces. And there's just no programs across the country that do this. And that's why I believe that we see such high success rates.
First-time offenders in front of me a lot of times have been addicts, and they've been using for decades, 10, 15, 20 years. Some say I started when I was 16, now they're 37, 38 years old. They've been using regularly, so they're just first-time offenders, and they get caught, and they come into the program.
Yep.
Great. I want to thank the panelists today, Judge Levin, Attorney Alonso, Attorney Braun, and Bob Zacchio, and also thanks to Chief Judge Metzger for introducing the program. It is very apparent that the drug court is a success in the 19th Judicial Circuit because of all of you and the roles that you play in trying to make a difference in the lives of the citizens of our community. The drug court is a team effort which includes the judge, the public defenders, the state attorneys, mental health counselors, psychologists, local businesses who are willing to offer jobs and assistance. Together, you have all made this endeavor a success, and we thank you.
Thank you for having
you.
us.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
for having us. Thank you.